Whitney Houston was the pop princess of the 80s, winner of 30 Billboard Music Awards, 22 American Music Awards, and 6 Grammy Awards.
Whitney was an extraordinary talent. Her voice was a gift to everybody.
But like many musicians before her, drug problems plagued the singer. And in 2012, she died suddenly, leaving behind a teenage daughter and a legacy that is both immense and shocking.
Her drug habit wiped out her income, wiped out her looks, wiped out her ability to make money.
For someone whose persona and music career had all the stuff legends are made of, Whitney's family scrambles to piece together her legacy.
Cissy Houston is front and center. She's denying that Whitney Houston is broke and left behind no money. But at this point, the media doesn't really know what's true and what's not.
She had run up so much debt, not paying taxes, not paying the mortgage, not paying the IRS, that she owed $1 million between taxes and various banks. And this was when she was really out of money.
The fame, the fortune, the legacy of Whitney Houston.
We want to forgive and forget the bad and remember why we idolized them in the first place. Beyonce, Mariah Carey, even Christina Aguilera, those people would not be here today had it not been for Whitney Houston and what she brought to the table.
In 1987, Whitney follows up her debut with another hugely successful album entitled Whitney. It sells millions around the globe, and now rumors of drug abuse begin to surface. Her fortune, once huge, is also starting to dwindle.
Whitney Houston did have a large entourage. She was paying bodyguards, security, chauffeurs, publicists, agents, managers, you name it.
There's even reports that she had her father on payroll, and that she said that she was paying him between $52,000 and $90,000 a year for almost a whole decade of the 90s, so that adds up. But at the same time, she's canceling concerts, losing revenue, so she clearly doesn't get that she's got to make this money last.
Soon after she signs the multi-million-dollar contract, Whitney is sued by her own father.
They claim that Whitney failed to pay John Houston Entertainment, her father's company, for managing her during her career and actually helped saving her career. In fact, they sued her for $100 million because they claim that they brought about this $100 million contract, and they rescued her from the real depths of the legal struggle she was having in the late 90s.
It's really interesting because they said they weren't her managers per se, but supposedly they masterminded this $100 million contract, so they wanted a piece of it as well. Supposedly 20%, but for some reason they were asking for $100 million in their lawsuit.
And ultimately, that lawsuit was dismissed because John Houston passed away.
Meanwhile, her fortune keeps dwindling.
In 2006, almost 5 years after she signed a $100 million contract, her $6 million New Jersey mansion is nearly foreclosed on.
Apparently, she had run up so much debt, not paying taxes, not paying the mortgage, not paying the IRS, that she owed $1 million between taxes and various banks, and this was when she was really out of money.
That same year, the divorce forces her to take stock of her assets. They don't amount to much.
So in the divorce paperwork, Whitney Houston discloses that she has $4 million in different debts. And on the other side, she only has like $300,000 in life insurance to support her daughter.
She also had the $225,000 in her stock portfolio and about $40,000 in cash at the time.
This is years after signing a $100 million contract. I mean, it's crazy.
In the case of the divorce, Bobby Brown got nothing but visitation. Supposedly, he was seeking a financial settlement, didn't show up at court, so Whitney Houston won by default. Then Bobby Brown appealed it, and guess what? He didn't show up again.
That's not a good way to win your divorce proceedings, but it really boils down to the prenup, because in the prenuptial agreement, he wasn't entitled to child support or spousal support, and Whitney Houston filed a declaration saying that she was worried he was going to go after those things because she had been supporting him for years.
In 2007, Whitney loses designer clothes, instruments, and personal items in a court-ordered auction to pay off a $200,000 storage debt.
At this point, Whitney Houston owned a $6.5 million mansion in New Jersey, but it did have a $3.3 million mortgage on it. She also had a townhouse in Atlanta worth over $1 million, and that had over $1 million mortgage on it as well.
Yeah, on top of that, she did accumulate, according to the paperwork, about $2 million in art and jewelry. So she was obviously spending that money on something. So you add it all up together, that is almost $10 million in assets, set off that $4 million in debt. The problem is that there's no liquidity there. There's no cash to spend.
The Nothing But Love World Tour grosses $36 million.
Well, at this point, even though her income had dropped off, her spending habits certainly didn't, because reportedly she was giving her daughter a $5,000 a month spending allowance. They were taking lavish vacations, flying on private jets, staying in luxury hotels.
And don't forget the big shopping sprees.
Big shopping sprees, of course. And there just wasn't the money coming in to pay for all this.
Tabloids run a story saying Whitney is broke. There are rumors that she called people to borrow as little as $100 just weeks before she died.
You know, in Whitney Houston's prime, she was worth as much as $150 million reportedly, bringing in $30 million a year, and now she's having to beg and borrow for a few bucks just to have food to eat and to live.
It is surprising. You wonder, was it her lavish lifestyle? Was it her spending? Was it drugs and alcohol? It would be a lot to go through $150 million in a lifetime.
Whitney's 1993 will states that she leaves everything to any children of hers who survive her. So her 18-year-old daughter, Bobbi Kristina, becomes her sole beneficiary. Bobbi Kristina is set to inherit 10% of Whitney's estate at age 21, another 1/6 at age 25, and the rest at age 30. Many celebrities don't leave their estate in a will. They often create a trust instead, leaving all their assets to one person, a trustee, to divvy it up. But with a will, it has to go through a probate court to be reviewed.
Well, Whitney Houston only had a will, and her will had to go through probate court, which led to a lot of delays before any money could start being distributed.
That's right. Whenever a will goes through the probate court, the beneficiaries don't get the money right away. It has to go through the court process. And in this case, there was a testamentary trust in Whitney Houston's will, which meant that Bobbi Kristina would get the money outside of the probate court, but you still needed to start the probate court process.
You've got the cost, the delays, the expense, the aggravation.
But then shocking news is dropped. Not only is there no money left for Bobbi Kristina, but it appears there is a whopping $20 million debt to be paid to Whitney's record label, Arista Records.
Whitney Houston may have signed one of the largest recording contracts of her time for $100 million. But the irony is she never received that $100 million. She only received a $30 to $40 million advance, and that was for record sales.
Records do not sell in this decade like they did in the 80s, so it's very hard to make that back.
Until she sold enough records from her next 3 albums after signing the deal to earn the record company back enough money for her to keep that $30–40 million. She owed the record company that money back. So that's why when she died, there was still this huge debt to be paid because her sales weren't there. Whitney Houston's record sales went through the roof after she passed away, and that the estate was able to bring in so much money that it actually wiped out the existing debts and added up to something between $12 and $20 million, depending on what report you want to believe. So clearly, this estate got turned around, and there was money there for Bobbi Kristina.
6 months after her death, Whitney's final film performance hits theaters. Sparkle, in which she plays the title character's mother, is number 5 at the box office on its opening weekend. She sings 2 songs on the soundtrack, and the first official lead single, a duet with the film star Jordan Sparks, is released in May 2012. It's the very last song Whitney recorded.
Like many celebrities, once they pass away, the value of what they've done increases, and Whitney Houston's estate was no different. When she passed away, the next day iTunes raised the price of her singles from 99 cents to $1.29.
Now, the Whitney Houston estate would only see a percentage of this increase, but clearly the price is going up, and the new sales that were generated led to a financial windfall for the estate and really turned things around.
With Whitney's estate now booming, her daughter Bobbi Kristina stands to inherit millions by the time she's 30. But her family is worried that she'll dwindle the money away. And in October 2012, they file a petition.
Now, once the estate started getting some money, Whitney Houston's family members started getting really worried about what was going to happen to Bobbi Kristina. So they actually went to court and filed a petition to challenge the testamentary trust and change it. They claimed that Whitney Houston never would have wanted Bobbi Kristina to start receiving millions of dollars at such a young age, 21, and they worried that her getting that money could actually kill her.
They were worried about her being unduly influenced by other individuals and people coming after her just for her money.
To add fuel to the fire, Bobbi Kristina is involved in a controversial relationship.
Supposedly, not only did Bobbi Kristina had drug and alcohol issues that she was struggling with, but there was also someone else in the picture, Nick Gordon, who was raised as her brother, and yet they started to have a relationship after Whitney Houston passed away.
Yeah, that gives a whole new meaning to the word sibling relationship, I guess. But it was a relationship that Sissy Houston, Whitney's mother, called incestuous, and the family was very much against it. And you have to wonder, how much did this money play into it? Because here's Nick Gordon. He comes into the picture, and they get married. They get married 2 months before Bobbi Kristina turns 21, which is the magical time that she starts receiving millions of dollars.
And you have to keep in mind this relationship. Nick Gordon was taken in by Whitney Houston when he was 12 years old because his father was in prison and his mother couldn't care for him. So he was really raised as a sibling with Bobbi Kristina, and that's why this whole thing is so shocking.